Welcome to Mr. Kelin Stories, where we bring you heart-touching, suspenseful, and powerful stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Every story here is more than just entertainment. It's a journey filled with love, hope, and deep life lessons that touch on real social issues. Today's story is one that will warm your heart, bring tears to your eyes, and remind you that family is built on love, not race or wealth. If you love thrilling, emotional, and meaningful stories, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to join our growing community. Your support helps us bring more unforgettable stories to life. May you always be blessed with love, kindness, and happiness. Enjoy the story. A sharp gust of wind blew through the narrow streets of the Bronx, biting against Anna's skin as she pulled her worn-out coat tighter around herself. The city was still half asleep, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, casting a dull gray light on the icy pavement. Anna quickened her steps, holding her daughter Lily's small hand in hers, their breath visible in the freezing air. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Most mornings, Lily stayed with their kind elderly neighbor, Mrs. Garcia, while Anna worked her long shift at Le Maison, an upscale restaurant in Manhattan. But today, things were different. Mrs. Garcia had an emergency, and there was no one else to watch Lily. Anna had begged her boss over the phone, "Please, Mr. Roberts, I don't have anyone to watch her just for today." His gruff voice had been laced with irritation. Fine, but she better not be a distraction. Now, as Anna hurried toward the subway station, worry pressed against her chest like a heavy weight. "Mommy, will I be good at the restaurant?" Lily's small voice broke through Anna's thoughts. Anna looked down at her daughter, her sweet, innocent Lily, with big brown eyes and curls that framed her delicate face. The girl was bundled up in a pink coat, her tiny hands clutching a stuffed bunny that had seen better days. Anna forced a smile, pushing away the stress clawing at her mind. "Of course, sweetheart. Just stay close to me and don't talk to strangers, okay?" She knelt, adjusting Lily's scarf snugly around her neck, shielding her from the cold. Lily nodded, her lips curling into a smile. "I'll be quiet like a little mouse." Anna's heart clenched. Lily was always trying to make things easier. Even at 6 years old, she seemed to understand that life wasn't fair, that her mother carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. As they boarded the crowded subway, Anna held Lily close, her arms wrapped protectively around her. The train rattled forward, the hum of the city waking up around them. Anna stared at the reflections in the window, her own tired eyes, the dark circles beneath them, and the worry that never seemed to leave her face. Lily deserved better. She deserved a father, a proper home, a warm bed without leaks in the ceiling, a childhood free from Anna's endless exhaustion. But Anna had stopped wishing for those things a long time ago. By the time they arrived at the restaurant, the morning rush had already begun. The sound of clinking glasses, laughter, and classical music filled the air. The golden chandeliers cast a warm glow over the elegant dining space, where businessmen, celebrities, and high-class socialites sat enjoying their expensive breakfasts, barely noticing the waitstaff moving around them like shadows. Anna hesitated before stepping inside. She knew this was a world Lily didn't belong in, a world where people who looked like them were invisible. She took a deep breath and led Lily through the back entrance, where the staff bustled about in the kitchen. "You actually brought a kid here." One of the waitresses, Rachel, raised an eyebrow as she adjusted her tray. "I had no choice," Anna murmured. Rachel sighed but didn't say anything else. They all knew how hard Anna worked, how she barely got by on tips. Anna pulled a small chair into a corner of the kitchen and sat Lily down. "Sweetheart, stay here and color, okay? If you need anything, I'll be close by." Lily nodded eagerly, taking out her coloring book. "I'll draw you a pretty picture, Mommy." Anna kissed the top of her head, ignoring the burning shame in her chest. She hated bringing Lily into this place, but what choice did she have? Just as she stepped out into the dining area, she noticed a man sitting in the farthest booth. Her breath caught. There was something about him, his posture, the sharp cut of his suit, the way his hand rested on the table. A strange familiarity sent a chill down her spine. Shaking it off, Anna grabbed her notepad and approached him. She had no idea that in a few moments her entire life was about to change. The hum of conversation filled the air, blending with the soft clinking of silverware and the occasional burst of laughter from well-dressed diners. The chandeliers cast a golden glow over the restaurant, illuminating the polished mahogany tables and the crisp white tablecloths that screamed wealth and luxury. Anna moved quickly between the tables, balancing plates with practiced ease, forcing herself to focus on the work. She had done this 1,000 times before, smiling at customers who barely glanced at her, refilling glasses before they were empty, blending into the background as though she didn't exist. But tonight, something felt different. She glanced toward the corner booth. There he was. A man sat alone, his broad shoulders relaxed yet commanding, his navy blue suit tailored to perfection. His face, partially shadowed by the dim lighting, held a quiet intensity, sharp jawline, straight nose, and dark hair neatly styled. His fingers drummed lightly against the table as he stared at his phone, unreadable. Something about him tugged at her memory, like a song she had once known but forgotten over time. Why did he look so familiar? Anna swallowed hard, pushing down the strange unease settling in her chest. He's just another customer, she told herself. Rich, powerful, probably the type who barely noticed the people who served him. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her apron and approached his table. "Good evening, sir. What can I get for you?" The man lifted his gaze from his phone, his deep blue eyes locking onto hers. Anna's breath caught. For a split second, something flashed in his expression. Recognition, surprise. Did he know her? But then it was gone. His face smoothed into cool indifference. "Just the steak, medium rare." His voice was low, firm, and controlled. Anna nodded quickly, gripping her notepad tightly. "Right away." Turning on her heel, she walked away, heart pounding, for reasons she couldn't explain. She had served hundreds of wealthy men before, business tycoons, politicians, men who carried themselves like the world belonged to them. But none of them had ever unsettled her like this. Something about him didn't feel like a stranger. But she had no time for silly thoughts. There were plates to serve, tables to clear, and a long night ahead. She forced her focus back on work, determined to shake off the feeling. Across the room, Lily sat quietly in the corner, her small hands gripping a crayon as she colored in her book. She had promised Mommy she would be good, so she had been quietly drawing, humming softly to herself. But then, something made her stop. She looked up, her wide brown eyes scanning the restaurant before landing on him. Her tiny heart skipped a beat. Her fingers slowly released the crayon as she stared at the man in the corner booth. There was something about him, something familiar, something warm, something that felt like home. Without thinking, without hesitation, she pushed her chair back and ran. Her little feet barely made a sound against the carpet as she weaved through the restaurant, past waiters, past guests, heading straight for him. Anna turned at the last second, just as Lily reached the booth, her small arms stretching out. "Daddy!" The entire restaurant went silent. Anna's blood turned to ice. The man's head snapped up. His face paled. His hand, which had been casually holding his coffee cup, suddenly trembled. Anna's vision blurred as she rushed toward them, heart slamming against her ribs. "Lily," she gasped, pulling her daughter back. "What are you doing?" Lily turned to her, confusion on her face. "Mommy, it's him. It's Daddy, just like in the picture you keep in the drawer." Anna's stomach dropped. The man stood up slowly, his blue eyes no longer indifferent. They were filled with shock, with disbelief, with something raw and painful. His lips parted. "Anna," he whispered. And just like that, her past came crashing back to life. The soft hum of conversation and the gentle clinking of silverware against fine china had filled the air just moments ago. But now, silence. Every head in the restaurant had turned toward the small girl wrapped around the waist of the well-dressed man in the corner booth. The air was thick with confusion, curiosity, and the quiet gasps of onlookers who had paused their meals, their conversations, to witness something extraordinary. Anna's heart stopped. This couldn't be happening. She felt her stomach twist as her little girl, her sweet, innocent Lily, held on to the stranger with the kind of affection that made it clear. She truly believed he was her father. Anna's feet felt like they were stuck in cement. For a moment the world around her blurred. The chandeliers above seemed to dim. The sound of her own breathing grew louder, and her hands began to tremble. Number, no, 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 this isn't possible. And then she saw his face. The man, him, sat frozen in place, his coffee cup forgotten in his grip, his entire body stiff. His once calm, composed demeanor shattered like glass as he looked down at the tiny arms wrapped around his waist. His blue eyes, the ones that had once stared at her with love so many years ago, were now wide with shock, with something deep and unreadable swirling within them. Recognition. Anna's breath hitched. "Lily, what have you done?" Panic surged through her as she rushed forward, her pulse hammering in her ears. "Lily!" Her voice came out in a whisper, but it was drenched in urgency. She reached for her daughter, gently but firmly peeling her away from the man's waist. Lily turned, confused, her big brown eyes blinking up at her mother. "But Mommy!" Anna crouched down, gripping Lily's shoulders. Her hands were trembling. "Baby, this man is not your father," she whispered, her voice barely steady, filled with desperation. "You can't just run up to strangers like that." "But, Mommy," Lily's little voice cracked slightly, "he looks just like the picture you keep in your drawer." Anna felt like the floor had vanished beneath her. A sharp inhale escaped her lips. The walls of the restaurant felt like they were closing in. She hadn't heard that name, hadn't said that name, for 7 years. She had buried it, locked it away in a box of heartbreak and unanswered questions. But now the past had come roaring back, standing before her in an expensive suit, staring at her with the same eyes she had once trusted, once loved. Her lips parted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel." The man exhaled sharply. His name leaving her lips seemed to break whatever spell had held him in place. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor as he stepped closer, his blue eyes flickering between Anna and Lily. Anna Dot. He said her name like he had just seen a ghost, like he didn't believe she was real. Anna's heart pounded violently in her chest. This can't be real. This can't be happening. She searched his face, desperately trying to find some explanation, any explanation, for how this moment was even possible. But deep down, she knew. It was him. The man who had vanished without a word. The man she had once loved more than anything. The man she had cried over, screamed for, and begged the universe to bring back, only to be met with silence. And now, 7 years later, in the most unlikely of places, their daughter had found him. The tension inside the restaurant was suffocating. Murmurs rippled through the elegant dining hall as curious diners whispered among themselves, their gazes flicking toward Anna, Ethan, and Lily. The restaurant manager, Mr. Roberts, quickly stepped in. His sharp eyes darted between Anna and Ethan, sensing that this was more than just a scene. He leaned in, lowering his voice so only Anna could hear. "Take a break," he said firmly. "Go outside. Settle whatever this is." Anna nodded, barely able to breathe. She took Lily's tiny hand in hers, while Ethan, Daniel, walked beside them, silent and tense. They stepped out into the cold New York night, the sharp winter air biting at Anna's skin, but it was nothing compared to the storm raging inside her. The street was quieter than the restaurant, but Anna's heart was anything but still. She spun around to face Ethan, her hands clenched into fists. "You left me." The words spilled from her lips, shaking with years of pain, anger, and heartbreak. Ethan exhaled heavily, running a hand through his neatly styled hair. His face, once composed and unreadable inside the restaurant, now looked raw, exposed. "Anna, I had no idea," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I swear I never meant to leave you like that." Anna's breath hitched. Don't you dare stand there and act like you didn't choose to disappear," she hissed, her voice sharp. "You left me. You abandoned me when I needed you the most." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You think I wanted to leave? I didn't have a choice." His voice cracked, and for the first time, Anna saw something in his eyes that made her freeze. Guilt. Deep, aching regret. Anna crossed her arms, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "What are you talking about?" Ethan swallowed hard, looking away for a second before meeting her gaze again. "My father," he said bitterly. "He found out about us. About you." Anna's stomach clenched. Ethan's father had never approved of her. He had made it clear that she wasn't the kind of woman his son should be with. A waitress from the Bronx. A girl with no wealth, no status. She had never been good enough in his eyes. Ethan continued, his voice lower now. "The night I disappeared, I didn't leave willingly. He forced me to leave the country, Anna. He told me you didn't want me anymore, that you had moved on." Anna felt like the ground beneath her had cracked open. Her fingers curled around the edges of her coat, as if she needed something, anything, to hold on to. You believed him?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know what to believe," Ethan admitted, his hands shaking at his sides. "I tried to find you when I came back, but you were gone. Your apartment was empty. No one knew where you went. I thought you were lost to me forever." Anna shook her head, her mind spinning. For 7 years she had believed that Ethan had walked away without a second thought, that he had chosen a life without her, without Lily. But now, had he been searching for them all this time? Had she spent years hating a man who never wanted to leave her in the first place? Her breath came in sharp, uneven bursts, her vision blurring. And then, Lily's tiny voice broke through the chaos. "Are you really my daddy?" Anna turned to her daughter, who had been silently holding Ethan's hand, her small fingers curled around his. The look on Ethan's face was enough to break her heart all over again. He dropped to his knees in front of Lily, leveling himself with her, his eyes filled with tears, real, undeniable tears. "Yes, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I am." A single tear rolled down his cheek as he reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. Lily studied his face for a long moment, as if trying to make sense of this overwhelming truth. Then, slowly, she lifted her tiny hands and touched his face. "You came back for me," she said softly. Ethan let out a broken laugh, his chest rising and falling unevenly. "I didn't even know I had you, Lily. But if I had, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you." Anna's heart clenched. For the first time in 7 years, she wasn't sure if she had been right about the man standing in front of her. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, healing, learning, and rebuilding what had been stolen from them. Ethan didn't waste a second. He showed up at Anna's tiny apartment every morning, dressed in casual clothes instead of his expensive suits, ready to take Lily to school. He held her hand as they walked, listened to her endless stories about her favorite cartoons, and sat through every question she had about his life, about the years they had missed together. And on weekends, he was there, showing up at the park, taking Lily for ice cream, helping her with her reading. He wasn't just making up for lost time. He was proving to both Anna and Lily that he wasn't leaving again. But not everyone saw their reunion as something beautiful. Not everyone wanted them to be happy. Anna heard the whispers at work. She's only after his money. She set this up. A rich guy like him? He could have any woman he wants. She trapped him with a kid. Anna ignored them. She had spent her whole life proving people wrong, but it wasn't just about her. It was about Lily, too. One afternoon, while picking Lily up from school, Anna heard the hushed voices of other parents standing nearby. "That's the little girl, right?" one woman whispered, glancing at Lily. "The millionaire's child?" "I heard her mother was just a waitress. Imagine trying to claim a man like that." Anna felt the familiar burn of judgment. She wanted to turn, to say something, to defend her daughter, her love, her truth. But before she could, Ethan did. He stepped forward, his face unreadable, but his voice strong. "You're right about one thing," he said. "She is my daughter, and she is perfect, just the way she is." Silence fell over the group. He didn't owe them an explanation. He didn't need their approval. He took Lily's hand and walked away like nothing had been said. But Anna saw the way his jaw had tightened, the way his grip on Lily's small fingers had strengthened, as if he wanted to shield her from a world that judged before it understood. But the hardest moment came one evening as they walked through Central Park. It was cold, the last hints of autumn still lingering in the air. Lily skipped ahead, laughing as she ran through the fallen leaves, her curls bouncing with every step. Anna and Ethan walked behind her, hand in hand, something they had once done as young lovers, now doing as parents. Then it happened. A couple walked past, their eyes lingering on Lily. The man scoffed under his breath. "She doesn't belong to you," he muttered. The words hit harder than any slap. Anna's breath caught, her fingers tightening around Ethan's. Lily had heard it too. She slowed her steps, her little shoulders stiffening, as if she didn't quite understand why someone would say that, but knew enough to feel the weight of it. Ethan stopped walking. He turned, slowly, deliberately, and when he spoke, his voice was steady and strong. "She belongs with us." The other man opened his mouth as if to say something, but Ethan wasn't finished. "She belongs to a mother who worked herself to the bone to give her a good life, to a father who would do anything to make up for the time he lost. She belongs in a world where she is loved, not judged for things she had no say in." The couple said nothing. They turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Anna let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She turned to Ethan, expecting to see anger on his face. Instead, she saw determination. He knelt beside Lily, cupping her small face. "No one gets to decide where you belong, sweetheart. You do, and you belong with us. Always." Lily blinked up at him, then smiled, a small, knowing smile. Anna felt warmth spread through her chest. She had spent so many years fighting alone. But she wasn't alone anymore. Months passed, and for the first time in years, Anna allowed herself to believe in happiness again. Ethan didn't just say he wanted to be in their lives. He proved it. He was there for Lily, every morning at school, drop-off, every bedtime story, every scraped knee and lost tooth. He was there for Anna, too, standing beside her through the late nights, the moments of doubt and the fears she still carried from the past. And then one day, Ethan did something that left Anna speechless. He walked into the restaurant where she worked, sat at his usual table, and slid a single set of keys across the table. Anna frowned, looking down at them. "What's this?" Ethan leaned forward, his blue eyes full of something deep and unshakable. "Love, faith, a promise. It's yours," he said simply. Anna blinked. I don't understand." He smiled. You've spent years serving other people, working until your feet ached just to give Lily a good life. But you don't belong here, Anna. He reached for her hand, his fingers warm against hers. You belong running your own place. Anna's lips parted as realization hit. She looked at the keys, her heart pounding. You bought me a cafe, Ethan chuckled. No, love, we bought it together. Tears stung Anna's eyes. This wasn't a handout. This wasn't charity. This was a partnership, a new beginning, a future. And so they did it, together. A few months later, Anna stood behind the counter of Lily's cafe, the smell of fresh coffee and warm pastries filling the air. Customers filled the cozy space, chatting, laughing, and enjoying a place built with love. At a table near the window, Ethan sat with Lily, helping her count sugar packets as she giggled. Anna wiped her hands on her apron, watching them with a soft smile. It wasn't about the money. It never had been. It was about security, stability, the chance to dream again. Lily suddenly looked up, her eyes shining with something pure and innocent. Mommy, Daddy, she said, tilting her head. We're a real family now, right? Anna swallowed past the lump in her throat. She walked over, crouched beside her doll. They had each other, and no amount of racism, whispers, or judgment would ever change that.